Hi, I'm Amelia Forczak. I'm the founder of Pithy Wordsmithry, and I help people write and publish their books. I'm a New York Times bestselling ghostwriter, and I love helping authors get across the finish line. I have a mini course that helps people if you want to just dip your toe in and see if writing a book is for you, a course on how to write a book. And I also have a new podcast called Sticky Stories That Stick. So check it out online.
On cam ready in 3, 2, 1.
This is Unknown to Known, an on-cam ready presentation. I'm Jamie Maglietta. If you're interested in using 2026 to write a book, then this episode is for you. We'll offer tips on what you need to do now to have a book you can publish in 2027. This podcast and YouTube channel is all about helping you and other high-stakes communicators level up online so you can leverage your expertise and attract sales and even become more appealing to the press. I've spent over 20 years in television news production, working across MSNBC, Fox News Channel, CNN, and other networks. And now I'm using my expertise to help you think like a producer so you can build your own media channel and expand your personal brand, which will ultimately help you become more known within your industry. And if this resonates with you, be sure to follow the podcast on your podcasting platform of choice or subscribe to the channel on YouTube. On Cam Ready Media is where I host everything. There's also a companion podcast called Think Like a Producer. Alongside that, I have tutorials on how you can DIY your content and even your pitching. On this episode, we're talking about how books help you strategically position yourself as an expert, the writing process, and the mindset you need in 2026 to get that book done for 2027. Now let's get right to our guest. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you became a ghostwriter?
You know, it's funny because I always wanted to write books ever since I was little, but I never really knew how to get into that. So I went to school for journalism, but when I was graduating, all the newspapers were consolidating and it just didn't seem like that great of a field. So I went into marketing because so much of marketing is content. And I was working for an HR consulting company when my CEO got approached to write a book. We were like, gosh, this would be amazing for his, we were trying to book him as a speaker and trying to market the company. And we're like, if we have a book, that would be super helpful. But he didn't have time to write it. And so I was like, I'll write it. And it ended up becoming a New York Times bestseller. And I realized that that was what I wanted to do. And so I started my business on the side. And I've written, I think 17 or 18 books in the last 14 years. And I love it.
That's a lot of book. You've helped countless entrepreneurs and thought leaders turn their ideas into published books. So what does it take? What's the moment when someone knows, okay, it's time to write a book?
I think it's one of those things that people have hanging out in the back of their brain for years, if not decades. And they start to hear from friends and family and people in their industry that they should write a book. And then they're thinking what does that look like? How do I go about the process? And honestly, I think people sit on it for a long time because they don't know what to do. So if you've been thinking about writing a book, it's probably time. So
Yeah. And many experts, they have the knowledge worth sharing, but they hesitate, I think, because they have this misconception that maybe people don't want to hear their story. But I'm wondering what other fears you've heard people have that have held them back.
yeah, I think everyone has a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I've worked with people who are at the top of their game, extremely intelligent, like Ivy League business school people, people who lead companies, and they still wonder, do people care what I have to say? And it's like, yes, they do. So that I think holds people back is just knowing that you kind of need to get over that imposter syndrome. Another thing that holds people back is just their platform. Like sometimes authors or aspiring authors aren't always comfortable putting themselves in the spotlight, even if they do have something that would be of help to a lot of people. And so it's getting in the mindset of starting to just put more content out there.
And sometimes people, I think, hesitate because they don't have the audience or they're worried that they don't have the audience. So where do you stand on building the audience? Do you feel like they do need to kind of build it before they launch that book? Or are you more of the expert who thinks, no, launch the book and the audience will come?
No, you really need to build the audience earlier in the process. And I know that's something that when people are like in the thick of writing, that's not always what they want to hear. It's like you should stop and work on marketing. But you want to have an audience in place when the book comes out because you need to have a plan for how you're going to get that book into people's hands. If you're putting all the effort into writing a great book, you want people to read it. And so focusing on the marketing during the book writing is super important. And it's actually easier than people think because you can get more mileage out of your content if you're writing it for the book and then you're also posting it to social and talking about your book writing journey and then taking sections of content, turning them into blog posts or articles or
Mm-hmm.
snippets. It's so much easier than people think, and that's really how you make the most out of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, if you want that book, you do need to start building some engagement online in some way, either a newsletter or an email list that maybe you're doing blasting everybody and sending out events or social media using Facebook or Instagram, Twitter. Like you are out there trying to get people to engage on your topic before you write the book. And then when you're writing the book, I always agree with what you're saying, Amelia. It's like shoot some B-roll of you writing the book. What's the process? How many hours is it taking? People will love that. If you look at Book Talk, it is all filled with people sharing their journeys. And that's really important. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, start creating that content, guys, set up your tripods. You got to record your videos.
Yeah.
I really want to talk to you about that idea to manuscript process. So as a ghostwriter, there's probably tips you could offer people that they could essentially start working on before they come to someone like you, or if they want to try to do it themselves. So, what do you usually tell people who, are thinking about writing a book? I want to break away from the conversation to let you know about Riverside FM. Riverside FM is my content creation studio of choice. I have some tutorials on my YouTube channel, so if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check those out. Riverside's great because I can record on Riverside and it all saves in the cloud. And if I'm having a conversation with a guest, it records there and the quality comes out 4K. I can really get high end studio quality video using Riverside. And the best part is they have this AI studio audio edit. So I can basically put studio audio touches on everything I record. There's AI edits too, where it switches the cameras if you want. And when you're done, there's an AI edit. So it will edit the show for you. It will also provide you with clips, social media clips. The list goes on, transcripts, list goes on. So if you're looking for a content creation studio, I highly recommend you check out Riverside. I have an affiliate link in the description, and you can even use my code OCR15 for a discount. Now back to the show. What should they be doing now in 2026?
Yeah, it's funny because I always get this question. There's so many things I want to tell people, like just a couple hours of content. I actually created a mini course on it because I'm like, if I could sit down with somebody for like 2 or 3 hours, I could just download everything they need to know into their brain. So I have a little mini course on how to write a book, but thinking about it from the beginning, like where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Like what does success look like? So getting really clear on your goals. I'm usually working with people who are using the book as a tool to grow their personal brand and business. And so we're looking for a lot of alignment with the audience that they have and then other products or services. So you really want to figure out how you're going to monetize the book, not just selling copies of the book, but selling things related to the book that cost more, whether that's speaking or consulting or advisory work, trying to get on boards or selling like digital courses, whatever it is. There's so many things, right? But making sure all that stuff makes sense as a product mix, because that will give the direction on where the book should go. And once you have that clarity, the process gets a lot easier because then you're thinking about what who the target market is, what do they need to know? You can do a brain dump of all those things that can turn into an outline, so you can get outlines for every single chapter. You can take the chapters and you can think about, how do I make time for this over the next 6 months? How do I time block my calendar? You can do an app like Harvest or something to figure out how many words you write per hour so you can get a baseline. for how fast you are, and then it just turns into math, right? You're like, I
Mhm.
need this many hours to finish it. I'm gonna time block it on my calendar over this many months, and then you just get it done.
Mm. It's so much work, but we've had authors on this show. We had Alison Bettish. She's a romance novelist, and she's also, a television personality. So I don't know how she's time blocked it, but she's written so many books. She's on her next four, so she'll probably have eight over, a
Wow.
5-year period. It's insane how much she's writing. And then we also had on Allison Camerata, who wrote a memoir, and we had Stephen Karst, who's owner of King of Pops, who wrote a book, and he asked Allison a question. And his question was, I've written this book, but how do I market it? So I wanted to get your opinion. Once they have the book, what's the best strategy to get it in people's hands?
There are so many things that you can do for marketing, and it's usually a mix of a lot of different things. And again, it
Mhm.
just goes back to what are the goals. A lot of the people that we're working with want to do more speaking, and a book goes really well with being a keynote speaker. A lot of those conferences or events see that as a real benefit. So, for speaking, getting a speaking reel and doing all the work to build those connections. I think cross promotions are super helpful. There's so many things.
Mm-hmm. And they can turn to you, right? If they need marketing help?
Yeah, we guide people through the marketing process. And a lot of the authors that we're working with don't have even, maybe they're a solopreneur, they don't have their website set up as it should be, or maybe they're transitioning out of corporate into like a portfolio career where they want to do some of that advisory work. And so just setting up a really good base that they can go from there, and then figuring out how to start sending emails and how to start posting on social and showing up as that person that aligns with where you're going, like the brand image is right for where you wanna be in 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah. And what she's saying is so important, guys, because there's so many people on social media right now who are positioning themselves as experts. But if they don't have the academic background, they don't have a book or a newsletter or something really special that ties them to that topic, it really makes it harder for them to be standing out from the others and become noticed by the media. So you really need those specific details ironed out before you write your book. And the book should help you stand out to the press. But just remember, the press sometimes hesitates around hybrid and self published books. So you do need to keep that in mind. But a self published book or a hybrid is a great option if you are looking to be a speaker and sell from stage, like Amelia is saying. So there's a lot to think about before you go into writing a book. And she's right, you need a plan. Anything
You're
you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, you're bringing up a great point. People do wonder how much their publishing path matters, whether they choose to self-publish or go with a hybrid or traditional publisher, and I think that in some situations, having that traditional publisher does help, but, it can be really hard to get a book deal, and it's very competitive, the process is very slow, and for some authors who wanna have a book come out within the next year, traditional publishing is probably not going to happen from that. That's more of like a 2-year path. So if you are wanting to sell the book primarily yourself through live events, you want it to happen quickly, self-publishing is a great option. And a lot of people don't know that in the front matter of the book, you can really print whatever you want there. So it doesn't even have to be
Mhm.
obvious that it's self-published. There's so many boutique publishers out there. You can put whatever name you want in there, and like the average person is not looking for that when they open the book.
Yeah, they're looking at that headline, right? The title of the book and the artwork and the topic. There's so much that attracts people to books these days, and with so many people turning to, Amazon or online offers, it makes it a lot easier for you to sell your book. You can go what is it, the KDP? I just did a
Mhm.
KDP. I have a workbook out on Amazon, right? I wrote it, I got it out there, it's up. So, there's so many different ways you can go about publishing a book, but you need the right structure. And that's what Amelia is here to talk about. So, when we're talking about writing a book, it's a lot. But if it's a thought leader, do you suggest that they kind of pull in from their personal stories, or is it better for them to do research and have interviews incorporated in their books?
The interview process during writing the book is really important for a couple different reasons. You want to build different perspectives into the book, show you're not writing it in a vacuum, um, but also using the interviews as a marketing tool for cross promotions. So if you admire somebody and you think they're doing something cool, it gives you a reason to interview them and talk to them and build that relationship. You feature them in the book, and they're going to be a lot more likely to promote the book when it comes out, when you're making them look good and you circle back with them and you're like, hey, I'm talking about this awesome thing you did with your team. They're going to want to share that. And so if you do that
Mhm.
throughout the whole book, it really builds in a strong platform for when it comes out. So that's like one of the smartest ways to do it. But it really also makes the content more interesting and better. So knowing that you
Mhm.
don't have all the answers and you're going out and sourcing them from other people and getting those great stories and pulling the best ones in, that's how you do it.
Yeah. And so for me, starting this podcast, it was all about I want to write a book and I want to interview people that could potentially contribute to that book. So I have a DocuSign. I'll send that to people if I don't want to circle back about quotes. But if you have a podcast, you have a newsletter and you're interviewing people, you can then go back through all your interviews, get the transcripts, grab the quotes, and go back to those individuals and say, hey, I would love to include you in my book. Here's what you said on my podcast, or here's what you said in the interview for my newsletter. May I use it? That's a great way. So, what are your thoughts on that? And tell us why you decided to start a podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is a great way to get more content. And I work with a lot of aspiring authors who have a lot more content than they even realize. So if
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking about writing a book, they're not starting from scratch, which is the thing that scares a lot of people, right? It seems like such a big project. They're like, how am I going to come up with, 200, 300 pages of information? It's like, you probably already have a lot already. If you go back through, if you've had a podcast or whatever the mediums are, articles, put it all together and create a content library. And then after you do your outline and you know what the book should look like, then you go back and you look and see what you already have that might fit in those places. That's actually how I wrote my first book when I was working
Mm-hmm.
full time for that company. We had so many case studies and white papers and so many things. By the time I went and filled in the stuff that we already had, all the stories from clients, that book was half written. So that can
Mm-hmm.
be very encouraging for people who feel like they have been working hard with. I mean, you probably have that with all your episodes. You got a ton of stuff. So you could go back through and figure out
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like. Um,
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
starting my podcast, I I talk with so many interesting people. Like my clients are, I think, so cool and they have the best stories. And I just love chatting with people. Like that's kind of like the whole job is like me interviewing people. And so I've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of hours for years. And I was just thinking like I should record this and share it with other people because it's interesting and I think it would help people. So that's what I've been doing. I've
Yeah.
recorded I think maybe 11 episodes so far and I'm obsessed. I love it.
That's so good. And guys, I'll be on her podcast. So make sure you check out the Sticky Stories podcast and subscribe to it wherever it is so you can get notified when the episodes drop. So when you're writing and promoting books, I guess there's a real mindset pickup. From podcasting to writing books, you need a certain mindset. So, what do you suggest people like kind of set themselves up for when they're going to write a book? The mindset for podcasting is kind of similar to the same mindset you need for a book. You're going in for the long haul. So, I'm wondering, what are your tips on how to set the right mindset in 2026 for people who are looking to write a book?
Yeah. Starting in 2026, you could get across the finish line by the end of the year. Like, you can do it. I think the thing that helps the most is getting help. Whenever you're doing a new project and you don't really know how to go about it, it's a lot easier if you have someone guiding you and it's going to take less time. So, knowing that most of the people who should be writing books are probably very busy running companies and they have a lot of other things going on, time matters. So, working with somebody to help figure out like what should the book be about instead of just writing. I've worked with so many
Mm.
people who are writing a book and they've been sitting down and just randomly writing chunks of content because it feels productive and it feels therapeutic, but they don't really know where they're going with the content. And that is just it's like a recipe for disaster with your time because it's more like it turns into journaling, right? And you
Mm,
don't know if you're going to end up using the content or if it's going to need to be edited heavily before you can use it. So
hmm.
I've worked with clients who come to me and said, "I wrote a book, it needs some work." And then ended up spending more time editing the book than if I had just ghostwritten it from scratch. So I my
Hmm.
best advice is to get help from the very beginning, start with a really strong outline, and then chunk it down into sections that are easily manageable that you can knock out on a regular schedule and stick to a timeline with accountability.
I love that. So, with a book, there's a lot that goes into it, but it has long term impact for anyone who's writing a book. So, what are some success stories that you've experienced or have seen from people writing books?
So many. I've worked with people who were coming out of corporate and just didn't want to work for someone else anymore, and they wanted to have their own platform and brand. And it's kinda hard for some people who are coming from, like, C-suite, like, Fortune 100. Where are they going after this? And I've worked with clients to create the book that fits their personal brand, have it launch, come out, and then now they're on, like, 5 public boards. Those
Hmm.
public boards are paying, like, what, 250 grand a year, each one of them. And so if a book helps you elevate that status and personal brand, that's huge, right? So it can completely change someone's career trajectory. Even if you're writing it later in life, if you're writing it earlier, it gives you a little bit more runway to use it in your career. But yeah, it can completely transform how the world sees you.
Books are, there's a lot of people who want the New York Times bestseller list or the USA Today bestseller list. What does it take to land there?
They do it a little bit differently than Amazon, and so they're looking at sales for one over the course of 1 week, and to hit that, I think you're usually, like, 11,000 copies in 1 week, and they don't really share their, like, the algorithm for how they see where the books are purchased. It's like a whole thing. Um, so hitting one of those lists is hard. Um, it's doable. Like, I had an author hit USA Today's bestseller list number 11 a year ago. The book is called All the President's Money: How the Men Who Governed America Governed Their Money by Megan Gorman. She wrote that book. We did coaching for it. It came out. People loved it. It did so well. Her publisher released it in paperback a year later. It was hardcover first time. A year later, paperback. It hit the list again. It was on LA Times bestseller list. And so, if a book is really popular and you're really out there promoting it, and it just hits the right moment, like the presidents are. This has been a big like couple years for the presidents being in the news, and this book's not political, so it really like did well.
That's good. Yeah, landing on that list is really hard, guys. I work with a few people who are aiming for that. It takes a lot of in-person events, speaking engagements, email lists, engagement online, a podcast, showing up on other podcasts. You're putting yourself out there and you're building a brand. You need a brand outside of everything you're doing because if you don't have a personal brand and you're not building it online, it's going to become really hard to make those lists and even sell a book at all. But you want that book if you are a thought leader and an expert looking to become known within your niche. So, are there
Yeah.
any other tips that you want to offer or weigh in on?
We've been working with authors for years and years, and I would just say that if you are curious, if you're book curious, you should really check it out. It's easier than it seems if you get help, especially from the beginning. And like, I think with anything, keeping up the momentum, keeping the vibes high, having it be something that you're excited about, not something you're dreading, makes a huge difference. And so, getting a partner that can make you feel like things are going well and keeping you on track instead of having it be like a weight on your shoulders, that makes all the difference.
And guys, I'm also on the Sticky Stories podcast. I mentioned that, but I want to repeat it here at the end. So be sure to grab the link to that podcast in the description. I'll also have links to her course and everything that Amelia's up to so you can connect with her. And be sure to check out the companion podcast, Think Like a Producer. So if you are starting to lean into new media or pitch the press, you can do it on your own in the beginning with my help. So check out the YouTube channel On Cam Ready and the podcast, Think Like a Producer. All right, I'll see you guys.